If you look at this flag, you see that's a flag intertwined with the Star of David, which is the Israeli flag,
Right.
with the United States flag. And on here you see the flag, you see that, they in front of the White House. Now, it say keeping Israel safe and America strong. Now, that's so heavy. That's their website. You can go to it. It's right there in your face. Right? They don't even hide this stuff. Right? Because they have dumbed down the American population so bad that this stuff can be in plain sight and we still will reject it. But you won't have a Jew come and defend this. But you'll go find a black person, say he a Christian, Hebrew, even a Muslim, to defend this. Right? However, this is the real power of the government of the United States. It's AIPAC. AIPAC is in control of all of the foreign policies, economic policies, and all of the tricks in the systematic destruction that they have set in place to the black man and woman, primarily our youth, in the United States. Now, last time we also talked about her, right? Now when I was putting it together, I said, I'm gonna put this back here.
Oh yeah, put it back on there.
We gotta make her famous.
Oh yeah, yes sir.
Everybody black need to know her.
Know her for
right?
sure.
If we don't know her, then we slipping.
That's right.
Right? Let's look at what she said. This her name is Judah Schroer. Quote, the major problem with Israel is with the young generation of the black community. Now we have to wrap our minds around that.
How is that? Come on.
Because it's like, how can a country 8,000+ miles away from America, how can the black youth, she literally said the young generation of the black community, the black youth, the youth don't got no money, they don't got nothing, they don't even know they under attack.
Right, come on.
Right?
Yes, sir.
They don't even know that. And they don't even know that God has blessed them with a warner, with a messenger. They don't know that either.
That's right.
Right? But look at what she said. And she's the Council General of Israel to the southern eastern United States. And she just said this 6 years ago.
Major.
That ain't even a long time ago.
Right.
All right? All right. But before her, she got a sister that some of us and our people might have voted for. She lost. But we still went and voted for her anyway. Asked the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan, he was teaching in Houston, I want to say, and he was on reparations. And it was like 2004, so it was under the son Bush as the president, and he said how much we lost under the presidency of Bill Clinton. And he said if he ran, we'll vote for him again. Wow. And now that was in like 2004 he did this. Down in Southern University in Houston, HBCU, right? Right? Now he did that. He was talking about reparation. He said that. Now who would have thought 12 years later, in 2016, we voted for Hillary Clinton again in mass numbers? However, the minister sent out a message in October before that, because she had something to do with the killing of our brother who loved the black nation, right? Put resources to the black nation, right?
Yes, sir.
Muammar Gaddafi, may Allah most certainly be pleased with our brother, right? But she ordered that hit on our brother. And look at what she said, way before she come along, right? There she go, Hillary Clinton. Now look, when I found this is the video, but we're not gonna play the video. But this is her saying it's actual. She in a college. Look what she at. She in a college.
King State.
She in a college, New Hampshire, right? And now she's saying she regretted what she said in '96, right? When her husband was going back up for his second term, right? Because he went in office '92 to 2000. So '96 is his 4-year re-election process, right? But she said this then. She said the black youth, the gang members were super predators. Now this time I was a gang member, so she absolutely said I was a super predator because I was one of those gang members she was talking about, right? But look at, but she in '96 though. Look at the snakeness of it, right? And so in 2016, when she ran against President Trump, right, for the presidency, she tried to take this back, right? But no, you said this 20 years earlier.
Right.
So now you ain't changed in no 20 years. right? As I was in the federal system when Trump and her was running for president when that was going on, and I was telling some of my homies who wanted her to get in because they was in there based on the crack law her and her husband put in place. So they were like, man, she gonna get in and change it. Right. I said, well, where she been the last 20 years? Where she been? Right, she ain't did nothing. And then Trump smoked her, right? She didn't win. Trump won by a landslide, right? She never came back out and said anything about the bill. But Trump passed the bill and made crack law retroactive that let most of them out with life sentences and big sentences. Right? Now, the black community, we want to stay away from that. Now, I'm not into the politics, but I'm just telling you an actual fact. Right. Under Barack Obama, the crack law used to be 100 to 1 crack cocaine. So that meaning for every 1 gram of crack you got caught with, it was equivalent to 100 grams of powder. Mm-hmm. Wrap your mind around that. So brothers getting caught with an ounce of crack, getting time like they kingpin. Right. Because an ounce is 28 grams. So if it's one to 100, that meaning they saying you had 2,800 grams. Mm-hmm. Right? Now under Barack Obama as the president, they reduced it to 18 to 1. They still ain't making 1 to 1. But the trick that they did under him, which was the Democrats, they did not make it retroactive. And that meaning if I'm sitting in there I'm sentenced to 30 years because I got caught with crack, and I'm sentenced under the 1 to 100. Even when they changed it and made it 1 to 18, it ain't gonna affect me. It affected the people coming along getting caught with it after they did that. Now when Trump get in office, like we knew they was gonna eventually do, they made it retroactive. Trump signed that in the bill. So anybody that was under that sentence automatically got a sentence reduction. So a lot of them had life and 25 years. They was getting out, did 9, 10 years. They was getting on out. A lot of them out now. All right? But that's what she said. She tried to peel that back. So we don't want to forget that. All right? This is part of our enemy's desire to destroy her and to destroy us. Right? So we don't want to let them get away. Remember the name. All right? Now, the movement for Black Lives. Now, criminalization in communities. Now, this is another plot trick, right? It was from a website called MB4L, I want to say. Now, look at what it says. Criminalization in communities. Black youth have consistently been demonized in the media and popular culture as super predators, gangsters, thugs, hoes, and welfare queens, with devastating consequences for young black lives. These narratives have served as primary drivers of the systematic criminalization of black youth. Every crime bill passed by Congress throughout the 1980s and 1990s included new federal laws against juvenile crimes and enable increased criminal penalties for children. Similar trends can be seen throughout the state legislature. Policing practices like traffic stops, stop and frisk, and broken windows policing disproportionately and often explicitly target black youth, contributing to disproportionately high rates of arrest and incarceration. Tens of thousands of youth under the age of 21 are currently incarcerated for offenses ranging from truancy to more serious charges. Truancy meaning they saying you ain't going to school. Right? Now, where's the data to back this up though? Is this true? Right? Now we seen what Hillary Clinton just said. We seen what the Jewish lady just said. Right? We see what the officials saying. Now, a primary reason that y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so now, let's see where I'm at on time. Okay. Now, another reason that the black youth is the primary target and the black nation community in general is because white folks ain't producing babies like us. Now, based on their census, they prove this because they do a census every so often, right? You know what I'm saying? So now they proved this. Now this is out of Tampa. And we're going to go to St. Pete, then we're going to look at the United States and show the conspiracy. Because we got to show the conspiracy. Why? Why? Because in America there's over 300 million some odd people, with the white population making up the majority. But they got the black population and the Hispanic, Latino, brown population separated. But in most of the cities, if we was to come together and unite with our Mexicans and Hispanics and Puerto Ricans and Dominican Republic, right? The Latinos, we would probably outpopulate them in most of the major cities of America right now, right? And it's even a fact in Tampa. So now I want y'all to see Tampa population, now white, non-Hispanic. In 2000, it was 154,872. That's Tampa, right? 10 years later, they only grew by, that ain't even a full 1,000. Right? By 2020, another 20 years, so in 20 years, from 2000 to 2020, they only grew by about 12,000. By about 12,000, right? Now this day numbers. Now you got the Latino community. In 2000, they was at 58,500. In 10 years, they grew nearly 20,000. This in Tampa.
Right.
In 20, they grew 21,000 in another 10 years, from 2010 to 2020. Right? Now we go down here to black African American. We was at 78,000. This Tampa. 83,000 10 years later, so we grew by about 7,000, right? Then we was a drop off at 80,000, right? But look at the white population, 166,775. 80,000 in black, 98,000 in Hispanics, Latinos, right? If we add that up, we outpopulate them in Tampa right now. Right? But so we divided. But why? So we can clearly see that the white folks ain't producing new life. Like the Hispanics are like us. But why does our number have a decrease from 2010 to 2020? That's because of the destruction, the systematic destruction that we're going to get into a little later and prove to you the systematic destruction in the black community. Now the brown community, the Latinos, the Hispanic, they not at war like that. This ain't Mexico now.
Right.
You know, Mexico is a different story. Right? But over here in the United States, or California, is a different story.
Right.
But over here in little Tampa, Central Florida, South Florida, they ain't at war like that. All right? So they ain't just killing each other like that. You have domestic dispute like that, but it's proven fact that why we dropping off? Because we contributed to our own destruction with the black on black crime, and it's primarily the youth against each other, but it's a systematic, socially engineered mentality that the black community is getting that causes this, right? So that's Tampa. Now let's go over here to St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg. In 2000, St. Pete had 170,396 white people in St. Petersburg. By 2010, that dropped nearly 13,000 in 10 years. They had a drop off, right? They ain't producing no babies over there in St. Pete, right? Then from 2010 to 2020, they grew by about 2,200. Now the black community was at 54,884 in 2000. By 2010, they grew by nearly 3,000. Then it's another drop off. So we lost over 1,000 black people in 20 years in St. Petersburg. Why? Same thing. Same thing, the reason in Tampa. And that is proof that St. Pete is even more violent and worse than what's going on in Tampa. The gun violence is even worse. The gang life, the drill lifestyle, right? That's even worse in St. Petersburg. Because it shouldn't be no reason when you go into any community, you see plenty of little babies running around. So we ain't having no problem producing new life, right? But maintaining that life going on to become grown and old, that's a problem because of the systematic approach. Now the Hispanics over here, Latinos, they was at 10,000. 10,500 in 2000. They grew by about nearly 6,000 in 10 years to grow by nearly 13,000 in St. Pete in 20 years. Right? So if we were to combine with the Latinos in St. Petersburg, we still wouldn't outnumber the white population. All right? But we would have we would have more, because it's not really based on numbers, it's more based on unity. All right?
Yes, sir.
Now, that other slide that I talked about the criminalization in the communities, when it was talking about how it's the laws is set up to lock up the youth and lock up black folks, well, let's see. Now let's go to the census of the United States. The United States Census Bureau reported 331,449,281 residents as of April the 1st, 2020. That's in the United States total. All right? The third most populous country in the world after China and India. Now, the white population, right, is dominating this percentage, right? It's more white people in America than everybody else based on percentages, but it's based on they got everybody divided. Yes, all right? So as long as they can divide and conquer, they got that. Now, it say here, look at here. The African Americans are the third largest race, per se, in the United States. But it say we only make up 12.1% of the United States population. 12.1%, right? That's interesting, though.
Yeah.
Well, but we make up 32% of the prison population.
Right.
See, this is proof that this is a conspiracy.
That's right.
If we want to deal with the numbers, right? And that's proof, because how's that even possible?
Right.
That's like impossible.
That's true.
So it got to be set in stone for us to be locked up. It got to be a conspiracy. Why? Because America is corporate America. Now they got the prison system on Wall Street.
That's right.
So now you go in there, you're a number, right? I didn't even did one of them. They got a private prison like a county jail as a holding facility for the feds, right? I was in there, so they making so much of money, it's like having a hotel.
Right.
They open up the prison and the government pay them to say, like, listen, how many inmates can you hold here? Well, we can hold 2,000, 2,500.
That's insane.
Where we gonna keep it, we'll pay y'all X amount, millions of dollars, and put your corporation, because it's a corporation, on the stock market.
On the stock, yes, sir.
It's a public traded stock.
Yes, they
right?
do.
And as long as you keep it about 95% full.
Wow.
Think about it. We go and open up an apartment building. We go and open up a hotel. Right? What's the percentage that you want to keep it filled? You got 100 units, right? You want 95 of those units on a regular basis, 98,
Right.
to be full all the time, right?
That's right.
Why? Because that's the cash flow coming in,
Correct.
right? So you don't want 100 and you got 50 people in there. Like, hold on, now we losing.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's true, right?
Yes.
So it's the same thing. So it's really like herding us like cattle. So we looked at how the white population would dominate America. Over 50% of the American population, they only at 31%. Look at the Hispanic, 23%. That's the prison population. Now, no other country on the planet got this many prisoners like that.
Right.
Not even Europe.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Right? And that's and we see that. And look at here. In 2021, black Americans were in prison at 5 times the rate of white people.
5 times.
5 times.
Man.
Right? So that's it. For every 5 black person that get locked up, only 1 to white.
Right.
1 white person get locked up.
Right.
Then it says in 7 states, black residents are in prison at more than 9 times the rate of white residents. 9 times?
Man.
So listen, Don, I've been there. State to the feds. You only see, it's a handful of white folks, mostly black, depending on where you at, mostly Hispanic.
Yeah.
These are the 2 dominant prisoners. Pretty much any prison you go to, these are the 2 dominant prisons. Only always a handful of white folks. Mm-hmm. That's it, even in the feds, right? And it isn't even more evident in the Fed because the Feds will ship you all over the country.
Right.
You ain't got to be from that state.